I worked at an old Chicago when I met Jen. That's how we met, right?
Is that a chain?
Old Chicago? Yeah, it's a pizza. It's a beer and pizza place. 110 beers. They do like beer tours. So if you do like all 110 beers, you get a name on a plaque. It's the kind of establishment that we frequented, right? And dude, those late night customers, they would get so angry and they'd order like the dumbest food. And it was so frustrating and I hated it and I couldn't wait to get off. Like, never again. This is why we work in fantasy football, Matt, right?
Well, I still like working in bars. It's serving food because the customers are all cranky and hungry and they want to be fed. And, you seem a hungry baby. That's no fun. But,
no,
if they're just there to drink and have fun, I don't mind working that at all.
Okay, so working in a bar is like getting to hang out with fun adults at a party. Yes. But having to serve food is like having a 5-year-old. Is that fair? See, I know what that's all about. No, thank you. What up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the Dynasty Diehards on this fine Wednesday afternoon. I am now learning that my studio probably isn't properly insulated because I'm starting to sweat. It is very warm in here, but it's also 90 degrees today, so I suppose that tracks. But it's never too hot to talk about Dynasty football, right, Matt?
I completely agree. I've been needing it because it's hot down here in New Orleans too, man. I've been insulating a house, which means it's not insulated yet. And working close to the roof, you just feel all that radiant heat coming down. Dude. And there's a heat warning in New Orleans for the last few days. But I got to learn a lot by researching insulation over the last couple of days. You can learn anything on the internet. So I just spent a couple hours going through different websites, advice on this, advice on that. And I came up with the best way to do it. And it's super, super clean. And now I know how to do it. So I'm excited. Well, it is brutally hot.
Living on a writer's salary, I kind of have to, DIY a lot of stuff, which I'm that way anyway, right? I've always been that kind of like tinkery person, but I'm not an engine guy. But I had to basically clean the carb and give a full tune-up to our mower last month. I learned how to do it on YouTube.
Cool.
Right? I got the thing running for $5. $5.
That's awesome. Man, I can't wait for us to finish the show so you can teach me how to do that. Because I'm sure it's going to stick with you forever.
I would recommend you just go to YouTube and look it up.
Okay.
It's going to be far easier with far better instruction. Far better instruction. I promise. But guys, we're not here to talk about engines. We're here to talk about some fantasy football. We're here to talk about Dynasty Fantasy Football. And we've got some questions. This is going to be probably a monthly thing that we're going to start doing here on the Dynasty Diehards. Doing a mailbag show because we know you guys have questions. And just because we have things we want to talk about doesn't necessarily mean it's always helping you guys. So if you want to submit your questions for our next show, you can hit us up at diehardsmailbag@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at FFDinoDiehards. Send us a DM. Find me at Nate Polvogt. I'm sure, Matt, you wouldn't mind getting some questions in your inbox. Just slide into our DMs at
DMs are always open.
Jester. Yep.
That's right.
Same here.
FF Mad Jester.
Yep. We've got Toronto.
Oh, what's up, Dave?
Toronto Dave in the chat. Looks like he's partying with us today. So we love it. You guys, thank you for tuning in. We will be here every single Wednesday, at least one of us, because vacations, work, stuff like that happens. We're here to help you off season, in season. Make sure you are subscribed to the Razzball channel here that you are watching us on. Make sure you're following Razzball on Twitter at Razzball. Check us out with the handles I said before. Follow us on Twitter to get all of the Dynasty and fantasy football news you could ever need. Guys, I'm in 20 leagues, 23 leagues.
Are you
Dynasty alone.
Because I'm in exactly 20 leagues too. I thought that's pretty odd. Is that your limit? How long have you been sitting at 20?
I actually dropped a few leagues this year because it was getting a little overwhelming trying to set lineups on Sundays because I'm so busy during the week. Like, I don't have the time to tinker with my stuff that everybody else does, Right. So, we work in the industry, right? So it's a little bit easier to kind of like hammer it out on a Sunday morning, but I want to sleep in, bro.
Yeah, you've also got a 5-year-old that
exactly. Well, not on Sunday mornings.
Okay.
Right? Not on Sunday mornings. He stays at the grandparents on Saturday night.
That's nice.
Yep. Oh, and Toronto Dave in the chat, he is at 5 leagues. That's reasonable, guys. My wife, Jen, I think she's in 13 now, about. Somewhere around there, some with me, some not with me. And we co-manage a couple teams together, which if you want to find out how strong your marriage is, for all you married people out there, co-manage a dynasty team with someone who cares as much about winning as you do and is as competitive as you are. Jen doesn't like losing, right? And I've realized through all of this and co-managing teams, our marriage is pretty strong.
Nice.
We're still here and we don't fight about it, right? So that's always awesome. We've got Mr. Scampers in the chat. Good afternoon, guys. Thank you, Mr. Scampers. We were actually talking about the FF Expo just a little bit earlier before we came onto the show, and Mr. Scampers is going to be there. I'm pretty excited. I'm excited to get to meet him. Dave is going to be there. Toronto Dave will be there, I believe, as well, which did you get to meet him last year?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like one of my favorite things at the Fantasy Football Expo was getting to meet Toronto Dave straight from Toronto. Guys, if you are not familiar with the Fantasy Football Expo, it is an event. This year, it is August 10th, August 11th through the 13th, I believe, are the dates for it. It's fantastic. It's in Canton, Ohio. It's 3 days basically centered around fantasy football and friends and having fun and doing karaoke and, I mean, honestly, getting into trouble, right?
It's a fantasy football summer camp for drunk adult nerds.
Yep, pretty much.
It's a blast.
In a really cool town. So if you're not familiar, check it out, fantasyfootballexpo.com. It's put on by Bob Lung. It's going to be a blast. This year, they've got the Kings Classic Draft at the Hall of Fame. They've got a flag football tournament, which, did you see who's going to be participating in that flag football tournament?
Is it Mr. Des Bryant himself?
Mr. Des Bryant himself. He's going to be at the expo. So if you were on the fence about going before, Des Bryant's going to be there hanging out with all of us fantasy football nerds because apparently post-retirement, that's what he turned into. How cool is that? Yeah.
So he's linking up with Luke Sawhook, and they're doing a weekly podcast, I think. And
they started a whole brand called Personal Corner for athletes to have a platform. Cool. It's very cool. It's very cool.
So last year I was on my flag football team in the tournament was the Luke Sawhook Nacho Ninjas. So there's a chance that I'm going to be playing alongside Des Bryant, and then I'll be unstoppable.
So you know what? I'm just going to say this. I love Des Bryant, and I think it's really cool he's going to be participating, but it's kind of bullshit because now you know who's going to win.
I hope so.
Who at the expo other than Ray GQ, Ray Garvin, could possibly even get close to covering Des Bryant, and he tore his Achilles last year. So which that sucked to see, but I don't think we're going to see Ray Garvin probably playing this year, but we'll have to see.
I won't let him play after tearing his Achilles.
Right? No, that would be foolish. That would be foolish. All right, guys. Well, I think we've made you wait long enough. We did talk about that we were doing some mailbag stuff today. I had to create a whole new graphic for it, which give me a reason to toy around on Canva. I don't care. I'll do it. We've got Brad Bolt in the chat saying, hey, guys, what's happening? Thank you so much for tuning in, Brad. Now, let's get to some questions. And anybody, if you're watching right now and you're in the live chat, please let us know what questions you have. If we have time towards the end of the show, we will absolutely get those up here and get them answered for you. But here's where we're going to start out. This is an interesting question that we got earlier today. So I'm in a 12-team Superflex tight end premium startup draft with a third-round reversal. So that means they're at the 11 pick. So third pick was the 302. So they're the 11th pick, right? So you get that third-round reversal, and all of a sudden, you are now the 302. It's an interesting twist to your leagues. It's one they use in Scott Fishbowl. It can absolutely change your draft strategy because now all of a sudden you have to wait so long for your next pick to come around.
You need to know ahead of time, and you need to plan around it. Because if you think you're just gonna ride the wave, like this person has 111, 202. Then now they get to jump up a full round, so they can kind of plan around that and see who's going to be there. But if I've done a couple drafts, mock drafts, I think with you, where we didn't realize about the third round reversal, and it's like, oh man, my whole plan is just out the window now.
Yeah, that's right. That startup draft we did. Okay, so here's the meat of the question here, guys. My first two picks were Austin Eckler and Mark Andrews. With my third pick, 302, do I draft a quarterback or do I take TJ Hawkinson? Now, it's tight end premium, right? So there's an extra PPR point attached to that.
Is it full PPR? We don't really have that.
We don't really have that
specified.
Let's assume it's full PPR with the full extra PPR point premium. That's what you tend to see with most of these leagues. But I don't know that it really matters how much of a premium it is. TJ Hawkinson's going to be a target hound this year, right? I mean, he's second most targets in all of football behind Travis Kelce, for tight ends. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just going to increase. Adam Thielen's gone.
Do you think 302 is too early, though? Because I've seen him go maybe at the end of the fourth, which they won't get a chance at this at the end. He might be there at the end of the fourth, but I guess if they want him, they have to take him. I don't really feel comfortable with that because you essentially should be picking a quarterback somewhere in the first 3 rounds. And if not, whoever you're taking needs to be able to be somebody that you are comfortable in a super flex spot. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a quarterback, but I don't think TJ Hawkinson is quite at the level of where I'd be comfortable starting him in a super flex position. Because we're hoping for 14, 15 points a game, maybe a little bit more actually, if it's full tight end premium. I do like to play bully tight end, and I know you do too. So having Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson is really fun. You just kind of need to know how your board is drafting and how your league is going. Because probably by 302, I want to say there's going to be at least 15 quarterbacks off the board. And that's very scary. And you got to think, if they're not picking again until 411, that's 22 picks later. So then you're really going to be looking at slim pickings. So I guess at this point in the draft, are you looking at, would you want to take a first QB if it's going to be somebody like Tua might be there, or maybe even Dak if people are falling off him? I've seen some crazy falls for Dak.
Same.
So I think that in that case, you have to go with the guys who are, TJ Hawkinson did hit a 50-point game last year, but the quarterbacks are just always going to score more points, even in full point tight end premium. And you got to have that, at least one of them covered before it's like Daniel Jones time in the 5th or 411,
What if I told you could get Kirk Cousins in the 4th?
You can always get Kirk Cousins in the 4th.
Okay.
So they're also starting with Eckler. And that means it's going to be an extreme win now, right? Like it has to be, because are you counting on more than a year from him?
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah.
So if you're going win now, quarterback needs to be your 3rd pick, more than likely. But then where do you go with that quarterback pick? Are you looking? I mean, is Kirk Cousins acceptable?
I'll push back on that, because if you're going win now, you can take Kirk Cousins at the 502 or maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because if you don't care about longevity so much, you can do a lot of stopgap, Jared Goff's, or maybe some if Geno Smith is there in the 6th round, that's wonderful. But I'd still want to take one quarterback here before, at least one quarterback before the 411. That's another way you can think about it, is your starting quarterback is going to be essentially a 5th rounder. And if you're comfortable with that, if it goes with the game plan, that's fine.
See, if I'm in win now mode, I might even be looking at like Geno Smith.
I would be looking at Geno Smith.
You can go 7th, 8th round with him.
You right. So that's what I'm thinking.
Him 4th or 5th.
If you're very win now, depending on how, Jared Goff is going to be there. Like Daniel Jones, he'll put up some points, even though, we don't really know how to feel about him. There's going to be guys in the back end, but I'd just rather have a Dak Prescott or probably a Tua over Hawkinson as a 2nd tight end.
See, I guess I would need to see how the rosters are constructed as well. Because if you're talking about you've got a ton of flex slots, I'm probably going to go Hawk here.
That's a fair point.
If you've got 3 or 4 flex slots that you've got to fill, I want high-end guys, and I want guys who are getting premium points in those slots.
That's a very good point, is the structure of the team.
Oh, yeah. And that's something, when we're answering these questions, guys, just remember that there's always a caveat to this, because there can be weird league settings in your league that we don't understand that could completely change things, like what we're looking at Scott Fishbowl, where Travis Kelce is the first player off the board in a super flex, right? But it's because his potential point output in that scoring format is so incredibly high that it's worth it. He's going to score more than quarterbacks.
He really is. I think last year in this scoring format, he was the 4th best player.
Yep.
Overall.
Yep. And nothing's changed in Kansas City to where it's like, well, he's going to see a reduction in targets. No.
Do you like, are you searching to buy anybody else in Kansas City?
Absolutely not.
No, not at all.
No. I mean, Patrick Mahomes obviously is always a buy. Pacheco for the right price, but I think he's kind of being overvalued at this point. I mean, dude, 7th round draft capital. And yes, he played very well last season, but then we saw the fall off with James Robinson. I mean, partially that was because he got hurt, but I don't think that Robinson's production was sustainable, really. I think they were looking at, we're probably going to go with another high-end running back. When they brought in Travis Etienne, they signaled like, yeah, dude, I mean, you were an undrafted free agent. You know, we're not going to hand the keys to our offense to you. It's very rare that you see a player that late. Terrell Davis. I mean, I'm going to go off Broncos guys here because I'm a Denver native. Terrell Davis was a 6th round pick. He's in the Hall of Fame. Wide receiver, if you're old like me, Rod Smith, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And he was undrafted. So draft capital does matter.
How about this guy right here in Austin Eckler? I don't know if he was drafted. Was he
undrafted? He was undrafted.
Yeah.
He was undrafted. We've got a comment in the chat from Dynasty Coach A. What is up, my man? It's been a while. We need to catch up. Tight end premium gets overvalued unless it's a major premium. And I think that is fair. But to me, so here's the way I look at tight end premium. If you know there's a tight end who's going to get a ton of volume, is going to be one of the key offensive weapons for their team, they're worth maybe reaching on a little bit because, dude, double points per reception. That's why the Travis Kelce's and the TJ Hawkinsons and the Mark Andrews, I get why they go off the board so early. But when you're going after a second tight end, if it's not going to be a stack of like Kelce, Andrews, and Hawk, a combination of two of those three, yeah, you should probably be waiting on it because they're not flying off the board in most drafts, in my
opinion. And so it also does get overvalued because people just automatically give more credence and weight to the tight ends. But you got to think it's only on the volume. So if you get some guys who are like touchdown machines but don't get any volume, you're talking about like the big dudes like Jelani Woods or Donald Parham, and people are holding on to Donald Parham.
Dawson Knox.
Yeah, and so they're holding on exactly. So they're holding on to these players because they're tight end, but they're actually compared to the rest of the field. If they're making up most of their points in a way that's not getting affected by the tight end premium, then they're actually kind of reducing in value compared to the rest of the field of tight ends who are making more points off of actual catches. So people are like, well, it's tight end premium, so I need to keep Donald Parham, and you're like, well, actually, Donald Parham is a little bit worse in tight end premium because all of his points come from touchdowns. He's not actually getting much of a boost.
Right.
So there's different ways to look at it.
It adds 2 points to his touchdowns, but that's not enough to put him as someone that I'm holding on to aggressively, I guess. Mm-hmm. Now, okay, so we're talking tight ends already. So this next question is a tight end question, and us being tight end lovers as we are. Who are your favorite cheap tight end acquisitions heading into the season? Who are some maybe like back end tight end 2 guys that you think could pop this season that you're looking to get for cheap?
So we call them back end tight end 2 tight ends, but pretty much everybody after like 5 of them is a back end tight end 1. You know, there's like 1 per team. And it's easy to get lost for that arrangement to get lost. So a couple guys that I think finished at like, I'd have to check, but I think maybe like tight end 6 and tight end 8, who are just not getting treated like that at all. But Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee, I don't see much changing for them. And they actually ended up doing really well last year. So if I can get one of them for 2/3, that's fine. And I need a tight end, I'm fine riding with that for a year. That's kind of what thirds are for.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, Higbee and Everett, people do forget about them for some reason. Not Andrew Cooper.
Well, he doesn't get any tight ends.
He doesn't get any tight ends. So let's take a look here. I've got the ranking pulled up. They were both back in tight end 2s. I mean, they were in the
were they?
20. They were. Am I looking at the correct rankings? Yeah. I mean, they were fine last year. Gerald Everett was a tight end 14. And Higbee was tight end 15. So actually, they're high-end tight end 2s. I think that's good value for what they produce.
I should rescind all my offers. I was going on bad information on that.
Okay, so I've got 2 I really like.
Go ahead.
That are going later in drafts, and I don't understand why. Mike Gesicki is one that I'm getting in like the 14th round of mocks and startups. 14th, 15th, 16th round. But
okay.
So he's a buy for me right now. He's a big time buy at his value. look, he's stepping into an offense with Bill O'Brien, who the last time he was the offensive coordinator in New England, you may remember this tandem of tight ends and Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, who had like 2,500 yards receiving combined and like 30 touchdowns between the two of them. The touchdown number's way inflated, but I think it was around 2,500 yards.
I should figure out who those guys are. That sounds awesome.
I know, right? Like, look them up. The Aaron Hernandez guy had an interesting path.
Okay.
Not a great one. Not a great one. There's a little documentary out about him and his Florida Gators right now that maybe you should check out. And here's the second thing, though, and I didn't realize this until last night because I'm not a huge college football guy. Like, I do enough to get by. I follow CU kind of. Bill O'Brien was Mike Gesicki's head coach at Penn State.
Whoa, the shower room narrative, the breakfast narrative.
Exactly, but
that's
in this
awesome.
situation, Bill O'Brien wants his team to win. And his goal is to get New England back to winning the division. So
he's digging deep into what he knows works and pulling up his guys. That's awesome. I didn't realize that. That's really cool.
Well, and it was interesting too, is if you look at the rest of that offense, look at their pass catchers. They've got Juju Smith-Schuster.
Who's still
Kendrick Bourne.
Kendrick Bourne is going to be 30, and Juju is actually still dealing with a knee injury, which sucks because I really wanted that to work out for him. And he put up points when he had the chance, but he just missed so much time last year that I got forgotten about.
I mean, he's had mediocre-itis most of his career unless he has a premium wide receiver in front of him, which isn't the case here. Unless you want to call Devontae Parker a premium wide receiver.
Would you want to call Devontae Parker?
Absolutely not.
Okay, good.
The guy had the chance to be a premium wide receiver. We saw flashes in Miami. He just never really got there, And I had big hopes for him in New England last season. It just didn't. He's 30, I believe, 31. So Gesicki's probably the youngest, most athletic, best receiving option for Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi, whoever they decide to go with.
They've got Tyquan Thornton there too, who's kind of he's not really showing much, but their offense was really terrible, just bad all around. I think last year they started with 2 offensive coordinators, and both of them were defensive coaches. Does that sound right?
Patricia. It was Matt Patricia.
Right, and then I think he was splitting duties with somebody, and there was all these memes.
It was him and Belichick.
Wasn't there another guy also? Or was
it was him and Belichick.
Okay.
I believe. And I think Belichick took over play calling duties towards the end of the season. And the offense did improve, but having Bill O'Brien back, who knows how to win at the NFL level, he was a terrible GM in Houston. GM in Houston. But the only thing
great offensive coordinator.
Great offensive coordinator. He was actually a decent head coach, too. They just gave him too much power, I think, in my opinion. So that's my guy. And then Chigakonkwo. I really like him in Tennessee. This is another situation where I think he's going to be the primary target for either Ryan Tannehill or Will Levis. Because I think Treylon Burks is kind of overrated, in my opinion.
Ooh, I think he's very underrated. I would love to pick up some more Treylon Burks right now. I don't know what
I'll sell you.
Is going on. I'll buy him.
I'll sell him. All right.
What you want?
We'll talk.
What are you selling him for? First?
$5,000.
Deal.
Just Venmo me. It's perfect.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, now we've talked a ton about tight ends. This next question is not about a tight end, but about a quarterback, Matt. Is Geno Smith a buy, sell, or a hold right now in Dynasty for you?
He's definitely a buy. There's no reason to be worried about him as far as the next 2 years, probably. And he ended up being, now I am checking my work on this one, QB5 in this in my favorite Dynasty league. And not only was he QB5, but they just made the team better, and they gave him Charbonnet, and who's a better pass catcher, and those points are going to go towards Geno Smith as well. And then they gave him JSN, the very first wide receiver taken. Things are only looking up for Geno. I'm really excited about him. I wish I'll go make some offers out tonight. What do you think you can get him for?
Probably a late second or an early third.
Oh, no way. No way.
You think he's going to cost more than that?
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking.
No. What leagues are you playing in?
Superflex leagues?
I mean, he was a QB5. I'll give you that.
He was the QB5. So I'm okay with what would you pay for 1 year of QB6 production? I guess that's where we're back at. And now if you're telling me that you're okay with Kirk Cousins in the 4th, you've got to be okay with Geno Smith being worth a first round pick, because a 4th round startup is definitely
okay. If it's a late first, sure.
Talking about Kendre Miller, Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, somewhere around in that range. Or, I mean, I guess a high-end second round, if you're in the front end of the second round.
I'm really happy with the one that I bought last year with the 203. I think I bought 203 right before the playoffs. Super happy with that. I would pay 203 all day. You're looking at maybe Will Levis falls there. So would you rather have like a chance at maybe Will Levis or definitely Geno Smith for 2 years? I know which one.
I want Geno for 2 years.
For sure.
I want Geno for 2 years. I know a lot of people are like, well, dude, he sucked for so long. And then all of a sudden he has this one great season. Let's look at, he played.
Why? Look at why.
Here's the why. He didn't actually suck that bad. He started his career with a Jets organization that was a shit show. Stinky, bad. If people forget, man, he was really good at West Virginia, and he wasn't necessarily a mobile quarterback.
But he would zip it right to that mid-range part of the field, like with accuracy and speed. And the Jets, of course, they bungled it. And it kind of killed his career. But Pete Carroll, boy, oh boy, can Pete Carroll just swaddle a baby and make sure that he grows up strong. And he, I don't know if he's the reason that Russell Wilson was so good for so long, but
it's kind of starting to seem like it.
Are we talking about Geno Smith being like a super, how much of a discount compared to, name recognition, Russell Wilson, if he's doing the same thing in the same situation, whereas he had terrible situations earlier, but if he's doing the same thing as Russell Wilson did for all those years in that situation, stick with it. I'm more about narratives and that sort of thing than I am about pure analytics. We just forget so much about how much of it is storyline,
No, exactly. I mean, really, to be fair, his rookie year in 2013, he was a QB 20.
Okay.
I mean, the big knock could be that he threw 21 interceptions to 12 touchdowns. So that was a little bit of an issue. The second season in New York, he was a QB 26 playing in 14 games. Not great, but in Superflex, that's somewhat viable as a spot start. He had 13 touchdowns and 13 picks. So I get why he lost his starting job, but it was in a bad offense.
He's watered down Jameis Winston.
Right. Was. Then he spent a season with the Giants as a backup, played in 2 games, spent a season with the Chargers as a backup in 2018, played in 5 games, scored negative 2.48 fantasy points that season.
Wow.
Then his first season, 2019 in Seattle, he didn't play a single game, didn't take a snap. 2020 took 1 snap. In 2021, he played in 5 games and was actually decent. He's 65 and 95 for 5 touchdowns and 1 interception. Then we saw what he did last season. He's 32, but there's still a lot of tread left on the tires.
Where was that the season that you were just saying those stats?
Where he's 65 and 95, that was Seattle.
Okay, so he's been there for a few years too.
3 seasons. This will be his 5th. This will be his 4th season in Seattle. 5th.
Well, that's
good Lord.
That's also a great sign, though. I mean, that's a great organization if he can stick around.
Exactly.
They don't mind building around him. They built around Chris Carson. Why wouldn't they build around Geno Smith?
Well, and dude, look at all the weapons they've gotten him. Like you said,
they're literally building around.
Then they went out and they got JSN in the draft. Like he's still got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Still got Kenneth Walker. I'm buying him right now, and I think that if you're a smart dynasty manager, you're also buying him because if you want to win now, which should always be your goal, this is a dude who's going to help you win, and you're getting him at QB2 value. If you're getting him for a second round pick.
I'm not going to do this, but I wouldn't argue if somebody paid as high as the 107.
Yep.
I wouldn't be mad at it at all.
I mean, I get it. I'd probably be, if I'm in win now mode and all I need is a quarterback, I'd probably do it because you're not going to get a QB at 107 in your rookie drafts. It's going to help you.
Right. Definitely not.
Right. So we've got Dynasty Coach 8 in the chat again. He says, this is a perfect example of how important team coach is for a quarterback.
Good call, Coach A.
Good call, Coach A. And I completely agree. This is why I think don't write Russell Wilson off yet.
Ooh, fun. Oh, yeah. Broncos homerism. Okay. All right.
No. Stop it.
All right.
Stop it. Don't write him off yet, man. Sean Payton's a good coach.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Hackett, decent offensive coordinator. But if we're being realistic, we know Aaron Rodgers ran that offense and probably inflated Hackett a bit.
That's
Hackett did have a good season in Jacksonville the year that they went to the AFC Championship. He was their offensive coordinator. But I don't know that was so much about him as it was about how good that Jacksonville defense was that season.
Oh,
and they got exposed in the AFC Championship by New England. So it is what it is. But I think you should be buying Geno Smith right now. Matt here agrees with me. He's just a damn good quarterback.
Sure.
I can't say anything else about it.
He's getting damn good fantasy points in a damn good system.
Exactly.
There's nothing more you can ask for.
So now we're going to swap. We kind of talked startup here with Geno Smith and values, but they want to know, when drafting a startup squad, do you prioritize youth over everything else?
Do you want to take this first, or do you want me to answer?
Yeah, I'll go first. No, I do not. There is this belief in Dynasty that when a player hits like 25 or 26, you need to sell, and be done with them, because you want players who are going to have, this window of production that's 4 or 5 seasons. So you want to go with the younger guys. Here's the problem with that. These younger guys don't win championships. The teams that are winning in Dynasty are the teams that are stacked across the board. Could you imagine if every NFL team sold was like out on players at 26? Like, nope. I'm not going to get enough future production out of you. I'm out. I'm selling. I'm done.
It would be college too.
It would be college too. Exactly. So then we'd have to have a senior NFL league, kind of like the senior PGA. That could be fun though. Huh.
Okay.
Roger Goodell, if you like that idea, hit me up.
They could just play with us in Canton at the Expo.
I love it. I'm not playing.
There's a precedence.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Dez is going to be there. So
yep.
Why not, man? I want to win.
Fair.
So I'm buying 32-year-old Geno Smith, and I will sell a younger quarterback. There are a lot of people that for some reason are starting to get real excited about Sam Howell. Okay. I've got some Sam Howell shares. I will deal them to you for a player that's going to help me win today. And I think that should, when you're drafting in a startup, look at players who are going to help you. Austin Eckler, take him. Don't be afraid. You can replace him in your rookie draft next season. But Eckler gives you the best shot to win year one.
So I don't prioritize youth over everything, but I think it's important to separate value in the dynasty market from production on the dynasty Sundays or the fantasy Sundays when they're putting up points. And those things don't have to be tied together. And you have a lot more leeway if you're able to separate them, because you can take the Drake London or you can take the Tyreek Hill, and those are just completely different assets. But you can cross over with them too by, like, say, selling one for a future first and an older guy, or it's how you want to build your team. I'm not so much a player takes guy. I don't really think that I'll win purely on speculating which players are going to do better that year. I'm more of a broad view, look at the team, see how it's built. It's just team construction. I like to say my players aren't great, but my teams are great. And
sure,
you find out what the rules are in your league. You find out how many flexes you're playing, and you just kind of make a plan around that. And you have to realize that value that you're keeping and holding, whether it be in young players or in future picks, you have to separate that from the production that you're hoping to get from them week to week. And it's nice when you do separate them, because you can put a little bit more money in both pockets.
Yep.
And
exactly.
It hedges risk. And if you can play one as a value game, but also play on Sundays, that's when you really get to win.
Yep. No, 100%. So we've got a comment in the chat from Brad. For me, it depends on my league and draft position. If I can get my first few options, I like to go young and assets. But if I get my guys early in a good mixture of youth and experience, I think that's essentially what you're saying here, right?
Yeah, no, I love it.
You got to mix it up. So we actually do. We got a question in the chat. It's from my boy, Jamie Prague. Jamie, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you around here in a little while. Is Cortland Sutton being drafted too low? Right now, per Fantasy Pros, his ADP is wide receiver 39, 94th overall.
Okay. I'll tell you exactly how I feel about him, but I would like to know your inside perspective as a Broncos fan.
So the way I see this playing out, because really, if you look at his last 2 seasons, he just wide receiver 23 and wide receiver 24. That's really not that exciting.
Cortland Sutton? Oh, you must be talking about points per game.
Let me take I'll pull it back.
Because I don't think I just had him pulled up, and he's only finished higher than wide receiver 44 once.
Wide receiver 43 and wide receiver 44, not 23, 24. I was off by 20.
Yeah,
my bad.
Well, it's an important 20.
It happens. So, no, he's not being drafted too low, and I'll tell you why. Let me tell you what this off. They drafted Marvin Mims. They traded
I'm so
up.
Excited about him.
I'm so excited about up to draft
Sean
Marvin Mims.
Sean Payton's new Brandon Cooks.
Exactly.
Stoked, man.
So now this is your receiving core on this team. These are the guys who are going to get the targets. It's going to be Jerry Jeudy as the X, Marvin Mims as a slot, and Tim Patrick is going to be the other wide who's going to get more looks than Courtland Sutton. He was healthy these last 2 seasons. 2020, he had a phenomenal excuse. He played 1 game, right? 2019, he was wide receiver PPR 19. To come back healthy the last 2 seasons, regardless of who's the quarterback, and go wide receiver 44 and wide receiver 43, Sean Payton can't be looking at this like, oh yeah, I trust this guy.
Right. I think
he'll get usage.
Well, he might not even get as much usage as Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick might have a better end of career. Like, it wouldn't shock me in the slightest.
Oh, it wouldn't shock me either.
I can't see. I actually just traded away, and you might hate this. I understand, but I tried to get a second for Courtland Sutton. I tried to do a 2-3 swap to, get rid of Courtland Sutton for a second, and I just couldn't get it done at all. So we're in the draft, and this is also a league, and this is why I like narratives, because in this league, your rookies your taxi only has 1 year of experience. So if you're not a rookie, you don't get to be in that in the taxi anymore. And I traded away all my picks because that was I won the league last year. So I needed to get some rookies, and I just to fill up my taxi squad, and I sold him in the draft for 312 and 2 future fourths. That's how I feel about Courtland Sutton. It's not good.
It's not good.
But you know what? We actually we forgot about a New England player earlier because I took Kayshon Boutte instead because he's got a much higher ceiling. He's much younger, and those fourths are just cash in the pocket for later. But I'd rather Kayshon Boutte than Courtland Sutton.
Kayshon Boutte's not good.
What?
He's Boutte.
Well,
I don't like him. I think this is the reincarnation of N'Keal Harry.
Who are you selling me after this episode? Who's the guy I'm paying $5,000 for?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Dang it. We'll have to go back and listen to the tape.
I guess so. But I'm scooping up all your refuge, Refuge.
I love it.
Great.
So we've got another question in the chat from Jamie again. Thoughts on Troutman being brought in by Sean Payton?
As a New Orleans fan, I've wanted Troutman to be good for so long, and he was all the hype a whole year ago, and I've got him on probably half my teams because the price was so cheap, and he's just been such a disappointment. But if he even takes away 25% of the Dulcich targets, that's really going to hurt Dulcich, and it's just kind of a messy situation over there. And I'm excited about Mims because of rookie fever, but there's not a lot else outside of Jeudy and Mims that I can really get excited about
Weird.
as far as pass catchers there. And then Javonte is also injured, so
right.
I don't know how it's going to go. But in these offenses where there's so many pass catchers and you don't really want to plant a flag, then I tend to lean towards going for the quarterback. And you were talking about Russell Wilson earlier.
Yeah.
If anybody wins, he's going to win too,
Right. The thing with Troutman is I think he's more of a blocking type tight end to me.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, and they need that help.
So he might be the next so like the Knox to Kincaid or the I don't know. Yeah. It's nothing to get excited about.
No, I wouldn't be excited about it at all. We've got a guest visitor here who just wanted to say hi real quick. Do you want to say hi, buddy? You don't want to say hi?
I do. I want to say hi and tell you and your friend.
Say hi. Can you say hi to Matt?
No, I want to hear.
Hi,
Here.
What's up? Yeah, there we go.
The headphones on.
Passing off the headphones. What's up, Jackson? What's up, Jackie man? How are you? Talk to me, baby. Cool.
So downstairs I organized for the play date on Sunday with Oliver.
Okay, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a huge Hot Wheels city, and it looks great.
Cool.
Okay, you better get back to your Hot Wheels City, okay, bud?
Bye.
He likes to make
I'm already
random
done.
appearances.
I'm
on
already
the
I love it.
podcast,
I love
right? Well, dude, look, it's in the family, right? Like, we're fantasy football people. Bye, buddy. We'll see you in a little bit.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's get back here. Also, interesting comment. Can't forget KJ Hamler.
Can't
Brad, we can. And I've got
Can
bad
we?
news. I love KJ Hamler. Love the talent, right? Phenomenal wide receiver when he's healthy. How often is KJ Hamler healthy?
I think he probably has 50 fantasy points over the last 4 years, something like that.
He's never on the field. He's a phenomenal deep threat, but he's a
Mhm.
non-factor for me in fantasy. He's at best going to be a bit part of this offense. I just can't see him being anything else.
You know who else is a phenomenal deep threat? Brandon Cooks Jr. Marvin Mims.
That is true. That
Yep.
is true. That is true. So now let's talk a little bit more about some of these rookies. This is an interesting question, and I've seen some debate, oddly enough, on Twitter about this today. Is there any chance Jahmyr Gibbs outperforms Bijan this season? What do you think?
I wouldn't bet against it at all. I mean, you can bet on Bijan, of course, but running backs are it's such a fragile position that
Right.
who's to say that either one of them is going to start 10 games this year? Now they're going to have the work. They're going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to get production as long as they're on the field. If you're talking about just straight up one or the other, you know, I'll say Gibbs is a really nice consolation prize if you don't get Bijan. Gibbs is a really nice consolation prize.
Sure.
And I could see him, you never know what's going to happen. I remember when Pittsburgh got rid of James Conner and they brought in Najee, and I was like, you know what? If I could get like as simple as like 10-1 odds, because everybody's just going crazy over Najee and James Conner. I think he was very late draft, but he was always injured and blah, blah, blah. Weird things happen at the running back position.
Yeah.
And if you can get odds that you think are a lot closer than what you're paying for, then that's always a nice situation to tear down and make some profit. And that way you can get, the point. They're both kind of the same vein as far as young running backs. But as far as points wise, I can see it.
Here's where I have an issue with it.
Mm-hmm.
Bijan's competing with Tyler Algier.
Who was pretty good.
Exactly. But
he's also competing with we didn't see Ritter run last year. And if Ritter takes 100 rushes,
that's true,
coming from somewhere, and Goff is not running anywhere.
Exactly. That's a fair point. But what concerns me is David Montgomery.
Injured David Montgomery. Do you hear that? I think he's a little tweaked. I might have been listening to an old podcast.
It's June, though.
I know. You're right.
Who cares? Who cares about injuries now? And now, if somebody breaks their leg in OTAs, I mean, yeah, there's something to talk about. But Jahmyr Gibbs is very talented. Detroit did not need to waste the 12th pick on him. They just didn't need to do it. There were other things they could have addressed. There were offensive line issues they could have addressed. Wide receiver depth that they could have addressed at that pick, defensive depth they could have addressed at that pick, which was in every NFL mock I did. I thought they were going defense with that pick. They didn't. They went with Jahmyr Gibbs and then traded DeAndre Swift. That's fine. But if he's in that DeAndre Swift role, there's no way. If David Montgomery stays on the field, there's no way. There's just no way.
One funny stat that I keep thinking about from last year is Kenny Pickett only had 7 touchdowns last year, and Jamal Williams had 17 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't think it would be crazy if and I wasn't even trying to relate the two, but I'm just saying weird things happen. Sure. And
that's not good. That's not going to be Gibbs' role. That's going to be David Montgomery's role.
It won't. You're right.
He'll get the Jamal Williams role. So I mean, but like you said, anything's possible. I mean, we saw Breece Hall go down in week 8, week 9 last season. That could happen to Bijan. The NFL is a much different game than college ball. And sometimes, it takes a while and your body doesn't always catch up immediately. That's why we see so many rookie injuries. So now, speaking of people who were injured and out of the game for a minute for an entire season, will Calvin Ridley ultimately be the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville? And what do you think his overall ceiling in fantasy is this season? Matt, why don't you start this one? Because I have an opinion, but I want to see what yours is first.
What did Christian Kirk finish as last year? Was he a low-end wide receiver 1? Did he end up breaking into 12? I believe
so.
He did too.
But They're in the same offense. Wide receiver 11. He's PPR wide receiver 11.
Okay.
Do you think is that Ridley's ceiling? Is like that wide receiver 8 to 11 somewhere in there?
Sure. He's not Devontae Adams, but I kind of see Christian Kirk as a, do you remember? So 2 years ago, Hunter Renfrow ended up being wide receiver 11. And sometimes the situation's just right and they fall into that, even though they're not an exceptional player. And then that team goes and brings in Devontae Adams. And I'm not calling Calvin Ridley Devontae Adams, but I can see him going in there and being the focal point of the offense. And I would, if he plays all season, I would bet over 1,000 yards. But I don't know if he's going to be like an exceptional league winner. It's been a while since he played. It's hard to know how he's going to look when he touches turf again.
Sure. I think here's where I'm at. This is how I see the pecking order for targets going in Jacksonville. Ridley, Kirk, Ingram, everybody else.
I love it.
I mean, that's just the way I see it. Ridley's already really like building some really good rapport with Trevor Lawrence, which I think speaks really well. And if you read his Players Tribune piece just about what he went through in Atlanta and where he was at when he made the decision to bet on football, I think this kid comes back, and I think his ceiling is probably a top 5 wide receiver this season.
Wow, that would be so heartwarming.
It would be, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. And then I think his floor is probably a back end wide receiver too. So for where he's going in drafts or what you can acquire him, I mean, depending on your league, because there are some people that are just as high on him as I am. But if you're in a league that isn't, you can probably get him for a late second, early third round pick because people are saying what you just said. They're saying,
yeah, but if they've been holding him for 3 years, they're not going to let him go for a second or third round pick. You know, I don't know.
I would let him go for a second.
I could see that. I could see him for 1 second, but I don't know who you are getting all these players for these. How many late seconds, early thirds do you have?
Oh, I hoard them.
You're snatching up Genos. You're snatching up Ridleys.
I hoard those picks, man. I hoard them to trade them, not to use them in the drafts. Because I mean, for me, the third and fourth round are trash rounds in rookie drafts. You're not really getting anything of value unless you got lucky and rostered Brock Purdy for some weird reason last season before he got the starting job. Yeah, I have a lot of them. All right, don't make fun of me. Get off my lawn.
If you can keep getting Genos for him, more power to you. You need to send me your cheat sheet on how you're getting this done.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sending you anything. I'm in leagues with you, Matt. We're getting ready to do a startup draft. I can't have this. Can't have it. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in today. I had a blast answering these mailbag questions with you, Matt. Now, guys, we will have another mailbag next month in July. Start getting your questions in now. Maybe we'll make it a longer show. Maybe we'll go 2 hours answering mailbag questions. Because honestly, Matt, I could talk to you all day about this stuff.
Yeah, man, it's always so short.
I'm so glad you're my co-host. It is. It always feels so short. So I'm dying of heat in this room. Dying of heat.
Do you need me to insulate for you?
No, it's plenty insulated. That's the problem. I've got 2 windows here, so they're like sun in, heat trapped, Nate screwed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it happens. Guys, get those questions in. Find us on Twitter at FFDinoDiehards, at FFMadchester. I always want to call you at Matt Chester, but it's not at Matt Chester. No. Well, maybe you should change it.
Maybe I should. I think that one's taken, though.
Probably. You can find me at Nate Polvogt. We'll be back next Wednesday with all of your Dynasty Fantasy Football needs. Matt, you look like you have something you want to say before we leave.
Yeah, we might have a little something extra next Wednesday, and we might have a little segment going forward.
We might.
Do you want to say the name, or do you want to hold out?
No, they got to tune in next week to find out.
Sounds good to me.
All right. See you next week, guys.
Bye, y'all.